Hello and welcome to another We Are Developers Live. We're live here again. It's Wednesday. I had some food, I have coffee, I have water. We're ready to go. Dan, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm very well. Yeah, had a nice Easter. We had a couple of little extra days off, didn't we? And yeah, that was really nice. But yeah, you've got to get back into the rhythm of it. It always takes me a little while. I don't know about you, but that first day is tough when you come back after a few days off.
Yeah,
Um,
4 days in a row is just a weird thing to actually be completely offline. And I only wrote an article during it, but not for work, but for the AI magazine that's going to come out soon. And
mhm.
yeah, it's an interesting thing to come back in again. And you also been at a wedding in Liverpool, which sounds like a mosh pit, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, same sort of thing. I purposely, before I left, my wife said to me, "Are you taking your laptop?" And I thought, how is that a normal question? Are you taking a laptop to a wedding? And I lied and said no. But no, I ended up actually not taking it, and it was really nice. Just kind of, I didn't completely, go offline, but I checked in on socials a little bit, but not a lot. It was nice to actually be in the real world for a change.
Yeah, a friend of mine is a wedding photographer, and he makes a point of collecting all the mobile phones at weddings when he's hired to say like
Brilliant.
no phones allowed because I'm here to take nice pictures of you, and I don't want you in my way trying to do the perfect shot, like kind of thing. Like, no, that's not what I want to do.
I
Cool.
like it. I think we should have that more. Yeah, it's a good idea.
So now we're here, buried under all the chocolate eggs and stuff, and bunnies and things that we need to eat the next few weeks. So before they get melted down to become Christmas, Father Christmases again, or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting how you eat these little things that you shouldn't all the time. And having
Yeah.
saying that, like say eating things that you shouldn't have. Originally, we wanted to have Christian Meyer here today from Thinktecture. He spoke also at the EAI event. I was in Berlin, so it was great to meet him there. And I had lots of jokes ready because we're from the same area in Germany. Like completely incomprehensible to anybody outside of from there. So, but yeah, he's not here because he got sick over Easter. I don't know what he did, but he sent his colleague Sebastian Ginter. So, Sebastian, how are you doing?
Hello. Yeah, I'm doing wonderful. It's great. Also having a few free days where we could have some quality time with family and our new dog we just got. So
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, no, it was good having a little time off work. But yeah, now we're here again in the week working and talking to you guys.
Cool. So you also work for Thinktecture. What is that?
Thinktecture is a small company. We're doing consulting. So our customers are the developer teams at the companies from our customers. And we help them get their hands on new technology. Like 10 to 15 years ago, that was how to do single page applications in the front end, mainly with Angular, and backend services mainly with .NET, because that's where we came from technically. But it's more about, yeah, and then it went more about architecture. And yeah, now it's all things Gen AI mainly.
That's what people want,
Yeah.
right? I think that's the there is. I mean, we have a few links in the newsletter about this as well. It seems like lots of internal companies, departments, development departments, right now have to battle the readiness of their company to embrace everything AI. I've seen that a lot of like mid-level companies now force people to use like chat co-pilots and in essence, what I found or what I heard, anecdotally, is that most of the time it's just fixing bugs that the AI has generated, rather than like being helped with your day-to-day deliveries. Do you see that similar? Do you have similar experiences with customers, or?
Um, it depends, actually. We have one customer who went all in very early and knowingly, and so they really embraced it, and yeah, they really live the Gen AI, let's say, hype currently. And then there are and I mean they started very early, like 3 months after the ChatGPT moment. And then we have other customers, like now in 2 weeks, I'm doing webinar with them that's also being recorded for them internally with several people that are non-technical people on how to do good prompting when they want to use tools like ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude Desktop for their day-to-day work. Like, how do I prompt it to formulate my email for me or something like that? So it's prompt engineering, not really engineering, but how to prompt for non-technical people. That's also where we're currently at. So a lot of people see things, what they could do, don't really understand what's really happening behind the curtain in these models, and then we have to talk and say, okay, that's something that you can do, that's something where it really helps you, that's something that you probably shouldn't do with GenAI. There are other algorithms for it that can solve that better and more reliable. So it's very new, and there's a lot of education happening in that area.
I guess there's a lot of price connected with it as well. Like, I mean, just the last 2 days, Sam Altman was basically telling people to stop saying thank you to ChatGPT because it costs them millions of dollars. And I guess it's because it's firing off another lookup, or I mean, wouldn't it be clever of a ChatGPT system to say if it's only was thank you, not to actually realize that was a request? I mean, that's pattern matching, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, that is something that also the distinction between GPT, the model, and ChatGPT, the web application around the model. That could be done before actually sending stuff to the model. But it's tokens that you send to it to be processed, and they're processing it. So
I'd actually be slightly interested to know if there's any sort of geographical, connection with that, because when I first saw it, I thought, well, please and thank you, they're kind of a big thing over here, right, in the UK, and I know they are in most countries, but sort of saying it to an LLM feels a bit odd. That you're even saying please and thank you and excuse me and I'm sorry. And I wonder if someone did like an analysis. I wonder if you saw maybe towards the UK lots of please and thank yous and sorries, and I don't know, maybe not, but it'd be interesting.
There was also a paper that checked if being polite to the model would improve the quality of the answer. And what they figured out that no, the quality doesn't change, but for some reason the answer gets a bit longer. So it even generates more tokens when you're being polite and ask, please, could you do, instead of just do, and the answer gets longer. So also that query is more expensive, uses more power, is not that good for the environment, and all those kinds of stuff. And the answer is not better, it's just more verbose.
Yeah. And I think that's the bigger issue here as well, that we don't realize just how much energy is being wasted. And originally, when I talked to Chris, he gave a talk at the AI summit that we spoke at about running models locally. And that seems to be a big thing in your environment right now. Is there lots of requests from customers to do that? Or is it something that you just, as a company, think yourself might be a better solution for people than to just burn through tokens and pay a lot of money to an American company? Not at all a loaded question.
Yeah, that also really depends. I mean, we have customers that are working with financial data, text data from people. And here in Germany, or generally in Europe, we have these GDPR rules, and it's not very clear also with the AI Act of the European Union if they are even allowed to send this kind of data to a processor over in the US or anywhere else. So the first thing is, okay, that must stay here. It must be GDPR compliant, and how we can ensure that. So yeah, first of all, you can maybe take a European model we just have Mistral there from France, which you can buy. Or on the other hand, you can ask, how can I process that locally so that the data does not leave my data center, my machine? And so, yes, that's something that's being requested. Yeah, depending on what you want to do, that's also a good solution. So, for example, I mean, the LLMs that run on your machine aren't that large, actually, because they need to fit in your memory. So you need to have a computer with a lot of memory. That's one of the constraints there. So we're more talking about small language models on your machine. But a lot of them are also already very capable of understanding your language. So with these easy day-to-day tasks, like summarize this email for me, or formulate that email in a professional style, I just type some bullet points and it should formulate the mail for me to get started. This is something that a local model can do without problems. When we're going about more tasks that need thinking or reasoning, then it's becoming more difficult. Then we're coming in an area where these local models aren't capable enough yet. Yeah, maybe we don't know what comes up next week in terms of local models. It's moving so fast. But at the moment, there are some things that you can do locally without a problem. Then there are things that are too complex for a local model at the moment.
Yeah, I talked last week about model fatigue. I'm actually getting tired of like every headline, every 2 days, there's a new model you should use. And it's that, I mean, this one here, the Token 7B instruct commercial, why are they not comprehensible terms for starter? Like, why do you call it Steven or something? But that one is actually by Fraunhofer in Germany, in Dresden. And it's actually huge and supports all kind of languages. So I was wondering if you ever came across that one before as well.
No, indeed, Token is new to me.
It's like 7.5 billion parameters, so that's probably not a thing to run locally that easily as well. But seems to be there is an interesting option there as well. Microsoft just announced that they have a new model that runs on CPU rather than GPU because it's highly optimized. Can't remember what they've done to it, but that was something that they wanted to run inside Windows for quite a while. But yeah, it seems like the optimization of the models themselves is now the next step in the iteration. We just always said like the bigger the better, but now we actually realize if it's only for that task, why would you need that whole internet in one model rather than just writing an email?
This is also something that we go over with our customers a lot, because in your business settings, you most probably don't want the model to answer based on its world knowledge, because that probably does not apply to your current setting. You're working in terms of things that are restricted by contracts with your customer, so it should know about those constraints. It must be grounded in your company environment, in your company knowledge, and you don't want to just talk about general things it knows from the world, because that's not how things work when companies work with each other.
Well, especially as a lot of data is not ingested from Europe because we have laws against it. Like this one here, Meta now resumes AI training on European content, which in America they didn't even ask people. They just basically it's a given there. But it seems European customers are more aware of like, what do you do with my data, rather than just like, oh, cool, I get free stuff.
Just on that, Chris, like whenever I come over to Germany, I notice it as just like it's a cultural thing, even more so in Germany than it is sort of elsewhere in Europe. I think that I'm always reminded when I get onto a plane, don't take photos of anybody on the plane without the permission. When I go on like an internal flight in the UK, you don't have that same kind of reminder. It's sort of I don't know why, but it seems like it's more sort of at the front of people's minds in Germany and in Austria and some of the sort of mainland Europe countries, because I think we have the same belief over here. I think people generally agree that GDPR it's still applied over here, but we don't hear it talked about. So I'd be interested to know when they say in this article that people are going to get a notification asking them, do you give consent? I actually straight away thought, well, what does that UI look like? Is it a dark pattern where you just click the button, nobody reads it, terms and conditions? Or will you see people in certain countries like Germany actually read that and say no, and and there be some meaningful kind of rejection of this? Of actually using the data?
I guess the reason is like until 1989, we had Eastern Germany, which was like a totalitarian system spying on you in every way possible. So that's why it's deeply ingrained in Germans that we don't want to be spied on. And even further back, we had like the fascist regime that was basically the same thing there. Like, it's always fun when people tell me like, oh, I got nothing to hide, so I don't care if my data gets out there. And I'm like, yeah, but you have to defend yourself against wrong accusations. And especially in an AI and an LLM space where hallucinations are a normal thing, that there is going to be a whole wave of like wrong information of systems about you that you have to defend yourself against, and you have to find a way to actually get that information the proper way out of it again. I think that's one of the biggest problems when we look at these models. They're still, they're available on Hugging Face, on Kaggle, and all these different things, but they're still kind of black boxes. We still don't know what's in them, and we don't know the magic behind it. We just get told like, oh, we now have a reasoning model. This is going to give you more information. But that transparency of what's in there, and especially the transparency of removing false data, is almost impossible. Is this something that you can do, Sebastian, with like a RAG in front of it or something, or like an MCP server in front of it? How do you prevent your customers from getting information, getting wrong information, or how can they actually fix things? And next time the LLM answers them, it's the fixed data rather than the wrong one again?
This is complicated because you really can't prevent that 100%. What you can do is doing some RAG upfront, give the model the information that it should act on, and prompt it to only act on that information. And you still can't prevent that the model somehow comes up with information that's not in the data you give it up front. So that's where you have to do another loop through maybe another model or the same model again, and with another prompt, and ask that model, hey, is this question answered here only, or is this answer only based on the information that we gave you there? And then do this as a double check before actually giving out the answer. That is a little bit tricky in the moment, because that also breaks a lot of UX stuff. I mean, where you see the model answer and the message appear token by token as it's being typed by the model, because of UX reasons, because you would wait too long otherwise. And now when you read the answer while it's being typed, and then you do a check after that if the answer is really based on the information up front, you either have to delay that and then again introduce waiting time for the user. And in the worst case, you figure out, okay, now it's starting to hallucinate, and you're going to retract the answer that was already 1/3 sent to the user, and then it vanishes, and say, okay, oops, that's also not great user experience. So this is the problems we usually have are not in actually integrating the models, because that's just an HTTP call away, technically, but with the whole UX around it. How do you present that to the user? How can you make the user interact with the model better? Stuff like that. So this is back down to classical software engineering.
I mean, one of the use cases you talked about was like email generation, email generation, and like and email reading, and like making giving you a summary and these kind of things. That is both now offered by Outlook with Copilot and by Google with Gemini. So it feels like how do you have to fight the already built-in UX to get it for your customers to do the thing that they have locally? Or is it something that we cannot prevent? I mean, there is lots of headlines yesterday as well about like Copilot being pushed in your face no matter what. Like it's really hard to get rid of it. And Gemini also has like 2 buttons saying yes or maybe later. But if you don't want Gemini to actually integrate with your Gmail, it's just a little gray X on the top to actually get rid of it. And the other big buttons, the welcoming ones, are the ones that actually give me more power and give me all your information. So do you see that like the operating systems and the software packages that people use, like Office and also the Google Suite, already offer a lot of their own AI stuff rather than using your own? Is this something you have to battle as well?
I mean, they do a lot of work to really integrate that and ground it on your data. So Gemini does not only have access to your emails and the email thread you're working in currently, but also on the data that is in your Google Drive documents there. So you do have access there to the grounding data if it's in that ecosystem. The same for Copilot, has access to your Office 365, which is now Copilot 365 because they renamed everything to Copilot.
For this
but
week, it's going to be next week.
They really try to do the grounding directly there. So that's one good step, and it still doesn't prevent that the message that gets generated maybe is BS. So but there you have the human in the loop. You have the user that wants to write the mail, and that user actually should proofread that and check if it's really what that person wants to send, because in the end the person is the one who clicks on the send button and is responsible for the answer. So you do have to do all that checking by a human. I mean, we're currently building a product. Our main thing is really how to keep the human in the loop in the whole process and not automate too much. So this is also a big thing, how to get the user experience right.
Well, I mean, in the coding environment, that can even become a dangerous thing. Like, I mean, slop squatting has been the thing of the last few weeks, and that basically is that when you use vibe coding and you just allow the machine to install whatever on your server and on your local machine, then when the code AI model starts hallucinating package names that don't exist, people actually wrote malware packages with that name, so they get included that way. And I think that's where it becomes really, really dangerous, that we don't understand that generating an app with vibe coding is not the same as generating an image or a video. It's executable, it's attackable, and it's probably full of XSS vulnerabilities and CSRF vulnerabilities and things, because it took the first answer from Stack Overflow and gave you that one. So how do we make sure that people understand that they're linting, that testing, that something you generate with a few prompts is probably not the right thing to deploy? Where does that come in? How can we make that happen?
This is something that has to do with the mindset of the developer, I think. I did vibe coding on a small thing, and I mean, it worked. So it's that 50 to 60 to 65% solution that just gets dropped on your place, and with what you can do with wipe coding, I think this is stuff you either wouldn't write at all, and if you do it with wipe coding, it's cheap, it's there, but you should treat it as throwaway code. So it's not expensive to redo a little bit better. When you're really working on your product and you need a certain level of quality, then that should, in German, I would say, bei der Ehre packen, to get
Take
on
your pride.
the
Take you on your pride, yeah.
yeah, to really live up to your either software engineering degree or your the old book software craftsmanship, where you really want to produce good code, and then you have to treat the model, the agent that works for you, as a trainee, as an intern, or how I would like to describe it is that you have a room full of trainees and interns at the very start of their software engineering journey up to almost finished in their learning journey. And beyond all these, at the different stages, you also have the really bright ones and the not so bright ones. And you throw your task into that room, and you get a piece of paper shoved down under the door, and you have no clue who wrote that code. And you have to treat it like that. You have to review it, you have to understand it, and then you have to either do a loop and say, okay, do that again, that's not our style, or do that better this way. It's still a lot more productive than if you wouldn't have this trainee or that intern doing the work for you or helping you with the work, but you are moving from your actually developer writing code role more into the senior role, where you overlook what it's done and check and have to get that right in the architecture. You're becoming more the senior guidance guy. So first of all, you have to have that seniority to be able to really reflect on what has just been done, to understand what is that code, does it work, does it introduce any issues, and you have to also you have to do that. If you don't do that, then the code, then you can let your interns program your product and ship it without oversight. That's probably the same outcome.
Yeah, I think Simon Willison once put it that he said like ChatGPT is like the weird intern that learned the handbook by heart but didn't understand it. And it feels like that as well. But I mean, the repercussion of that is trickier. I mean, I said that years ago as well, when I said like that the whole hierarchy of needs in development is going to be changing. Junior developers are normally the people that write the code. Most of the time now we generate that code. As a senior developer, you start looking at other people's code and gauge the quality and actually analyze it and teach people how to make that code more efficient. So this skill set, the gauging the quality of code by looking at it, is something that has to come much, much earlier. And weirdly enough, people think that's only senior developers that can do it. That's why when you look at the job market, everybody's looking for senior developers. Nobody's looking for juniors anymore. And that kind of can't work, can it?
It can't, because you need the juniors to gather experience to become the new seniors. So and that's, I mean, pretty much it. You need to gather the experience. You can't be the senior at day 100 of your developer journey. That's not how it works. You need to make mistakes. You need to be allowed to make mistakes, to learn from them. and have someone on your side telling you, okay, that wasn't good. That was the reason it wasn't good. We can fix that by doing this. And yeah, you need to make that experience by yourself. And when you don't have a lot of juniors now, you're missing out the seniors later on. That's a problem I see. But yeah, no idea or solution for that.
So Dan, we talked about like vibe coding, and one of the things that I found really weird going from assisted coding that we had before to the vibe coding paradigm that we have now is that every time you tell the thing that something is wrong, it starts deleting everything and starts the app from scratch rather than just like editing parts of it. This is the really weirdly wasteful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it before about how I'm trying to remember what it was I was doing just a few weeks back, and it was I became aware of how much waste it just leaves in your code because it might decide to just change an approach. I think I know what it was. It was I was using Next.js, and it rather than using server actions, it set everything up with API routes. It's kind of an outdated approach from one of the older versions. And so when I started saying, okay, well, let's switch over to server actions, it would create the server actions with essentially the same code. But then it would just leave all the, the imports in there. It would leave sometimes just inline functions. It wouldn't put them away in like a different folder. It would just leave them, sort of duplicated across several different files. And I became aware that it very quickly forgets what it's doing. It very quickly forgets what it's done, and it just starts saying, well, if I create more, then that's the good thing. So I think when you said, Sebastian, saying please and thank you means it creates more, and then it thinks that's a good thing. You hit the nail on the head, because that's exactly the problem. It just puts things out and never tidies up. I have enough of that from my child downstairs. She gets her toys out, she plays with one, and then leaves all the rest out. And that's what it feels like. It's like they never clear up after themselves. And yeah, so it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. A strange analogy, isn't it? But we'll go with it.
Well, it's a bit like the inane idea of like lines of code is the quality of a developer. That always cracked me up when companies started saying that, like, yeah, how much have you written last month? And I'm like, how much research have I done that means I didn't have to write code? That is actually more interesting. I mean, I have an article coming out about the same topics that you just talked about, Sebastian, about learning to fail and learning from our own failure and ownership of the content. Basically, when you get something created from a vibe coding editor and you publish it, people clap and think you're amazing, but you deep down, you feel basically like a fraud because you've done nothing of it. Like when you put the effort in, when you actually did the research to do it, then you feel much more connected to the product. And I think you're building a better product that way as well. And we're kind of like by fast forwarding this whole process, we're kind of stealing it from junior developers to learn that by hardship and learn by making mistakes, and that way feeling more proud of maybe an app that's not perfect, but actually is out there and you know what it does.
Yeah. I mean, there's this balance I think you can already find, because what these models are great for is doing boilerplate code for you. That's sadly still necessary, but exactly like you're doing the hard work thinking about your business logic and building out your business service classes that really do the hard work, keep your data intact. And then you can go on and, okay, now we wrote this piece of code. Please do all the API endpoints for that. And take these API endpoints over there as a template, because they already have authentication, authorization, model checking, and the DTO structure in there with all the necessary documentation. And now just do it. And then let the model run for a few minutes. And then you review that, because when you would write that, it really would take a lot of time, and the model is done in a few minutes. And I mean, there's not a lot you can do wrong with the front layer of API endpoints when you already did them once, and it just copies and pasted that and adjusts that for your new business classes and using your new business logic. So this is something where it really can save a lot of time and not introduce a lot of harm.
Now, this article I found was quite interesting by Matthijs Lagerberg, Programming with an AI Copilot, my perspective as a senior developer. So we're all senior developers here as well. I mean, Dan, did you take a look at that in more detail, or didn't you have time either for looking into it?
Yeah, no, I did take a look, and I think there was some really interesting parts actually that jumped out. There was one that just it just summed it up brilliantly. It says these tools are dangerously capable. When it's under the header, where does it go wrong? It's just the way they put this is brilliant. I think, these tools are dangerously capable. They produce code that looks professional, that works, that can even be elegant, and that can be dramatically unsafe. And I think that is the heart of it, And I really can relate to that because I'm very much not a security specialist by any stretch. So I will be making those mistakes because I probably will be focusing on, that does what I wanted it to do. It does it in a more succinct way. And it just shows you how it's almost like if there is something nice and shiny about the code, if you go, oh, that's nice. Okay, that looks quite clean. Or, oh, they commented it nicely. So I know in a year's time I can read this back and it'll make sense. You then forget about the fact that there's this dramatically unsafe side to it. So there was another part that jumped out that I'll just see if I can find it. There was it's actually the following paragraph when they're saying about the back-end experiment, and that there was it was clear that protection against SQL injection was completely absent. So it's not only unsafe, it's seeming like it's just not bothering with that side of things. And I wondered if that was maybe because of how these models are trained. Is security sort of outweighed by some of the other stuff because they seem to be so good at the front end, kind of quite simple design decisions, stuff that isn't that complex psychologically. It's more sort of here's a font you could use, and here's some colors that look nice, and here's a standard layout for this kind of site. And it does a lot of the front end stuff. But as soon as you get into the real, what I would call the real technicals, the things you can't see, the security side of things, is it just trained on is it just that it's poor code, or was it just not really part of the data that's trained on? Is it kind of outweighed by that front end stuff? Do you see what I mean?
I think there's a sad point to it. The same with accessibility and performance is that we still haven't grown up as a market enough to actually think about these things up front. But we write code and then we do a security audit, then we do an accessibility audit, and then we do a performance analysis, and we realize just how much of it is horrible and we have to redo. But when I think years and years of Stack Overflow, where these machines have actually learned from, taught us that communities are actually happy to get the happy path and not the proper answer. Like whenever I answered things on Stack Overflow, I became like very much known as the grumpy guy who basically says like, you could do it like that, but then it's shit. But you could, or we could do these kind of things and think about it beforehand, because every form field that basically can be written out in JavaScript unfiltered is basically an attack vector. And explaining these things has become a nuisance to people. That's why the first answers on Stack Overflow were always the most convenient ones, not the best quality ones. And that's why we push these things of security, performance, accessibility to the end of the process rather than making it a starting point with that. Because we want people to have immediate successes. That's the biggest problem. I think the serotonin flash of like doing things fast and getting immediate results was much more important than like, and now we do it correctly. But now we do it correctly is oftentimes we never get the chance to do it. I mean, how many times have you worked with companies that said like, oh yeah, we're going to do it quickly now, and later on we're going to do a round of reviewing our code, and that magical round of reviewing our code never comes because nobody pays for that.
Yeah, and I mean that's also when we look at I mean, we can't look at how the models are trained because most of the companies keep that a secret. But I mean, we can guess that there's a lot of Stack Overflow in there, and that's a lot of GitHub in there. And so then you just said, is it a lot of poor code? No, it's a lot of average code. But I mean, the model averages poor code and good code out. So it's a lot of average code, but we need to restrict that a little more. It's trained on a lot of average public code. I think there's not a lot of company internal code in these models where these things like security are very important. So you have a lot of these side projects in there where they are in the make it work, make it fast, make it beautiful. And yeah, mostly are make it work. So it works. It's not fast, it's not secure, it's not yet beautiful. It's average public code. And yeah, it can't really do better than that when just ask for a generic task. When you think about these SQL injections, then you would go and have to do another loop, like check that code for possible SQL injections and fix them. And that's another task for the model to solve. And then it focuses on that. And yeah, then you have the context of the model switched to that specific thing. So then you get the average SQL injection protected code out of that. And then you need to look at, okay, now what about cross-site scripting attacks? Fix these if they are in there. And then you have to do all these things like you would with your code when you're working on a product. I mean, you make it work, and then you think about, okay, now I need to check that it's secure. And then you're changing your own focus on that topic and doing that. And what I think is good, when you have this mindset, then you also can direct the model to these topics, because you're not that deep into the logic, into the code at that moment where, okay, I can do this optimization, I can do that optimization, and then forget about the big picture, forget about the rest, because you're so in the nitty-gritty details. When you let the model do the nitty-gritty details, you as the senior can overlook everything and then point, okay, do this, do that, do the security, do the optimization here. What are options for optimizations, and what would be the best option here? Like, challenge the model to come up with multiple solutions and then pick one out of these, like you would when training a junior. So this is the mindset thing that you have to really leverage that as a tool.
I think that's really interesting in terms of, like, we always tout AI as a boost to engineering productivity. Like, oh, you can now do in 2 prompts what you would have done for 5 weeks before that. But if you think of the LLM as a junior developer that basically can get off the rails every 2 minutes, if you just don't take a look at it, it's not that effective. It's like the auto-completion bits that were the first parts of the AI encoding, totally fine with that. As you said, like when we have boilerplate code, there's no point writing that by hand. We would have done that with like templates in the past anyways, and now we just can get it with like one tap written for us. That's the necessary bits. But the seeing how much effort we have to put into reviewing what's generated for us, or we should actually, if we don't want to get hacked or we don't want our tokens to be used by people out there. I mean, there were so many horror stories of people building a Vibe app and then having their API key exposed in the app, and out of a sudden getting a bill of a few $10,000 because people actually used their API key because they found it in an HTTP request or something like that. Like basic failures like these. And I mean, in my case, or in most developer cases I know, we have our engineering environment set up to help us with that. I've got linting set up for like CSS, JavaScript, for security, for accessibility issues, for all the things. My editor already tells me with a squiggly line that that's probably not a good idea. But now that we push people into bespoke editors for vibe coding, they don't have these linting steps set up. They just basically there for quick deployment. So this feels like I don't understand that anyways. I mean, OpenAI just bought Windsurf or for 3 million like 2 days ago, or proposed that and wanted to buy Cursor beforehand, but they said no. But I mean, I'm getting so tired of people telling me I should use this editor to become a professional developer, rather than like, I've spent so many weeks setting up my fonts in my Visual Studio Code. I want to keep it. Give me a plugin instead. But it seems to me like that's a lot of companies want you to own you as a developer, and that's why they give you a full development environment.
I think they can monetize that better, like with Cursor or Windsurf, where you have that subscription behind that. So these are companies that can concentrate on marketing and getting people buy the product, pay for it, and hope that with that subscription that they get more money than they pay in their own token usage at the providers they have in the back. Then there's Klein, for example, or RuCode, which are plugins in Visual Studio Code, where you bring your own API key and just pay your own tokens. And when I see that, I really can't think how the subscription models of Windsurf or Cursor are sustainable, because what I use on tokens, it is a bit more than the 10 or 15 bucks. Even GitHub Copilot, even with their Copilot Plus Pro subscription for I think it's $39 per month now. Even that, I'm mostly over that amount when I use the same models in Klein via currently OpenRouter, where you have all the models behind that one provider, and you don't pay so much more on the premium to have all the access. So this is something, yeah, I find difficult. So we will have to see how this develops. But I, as a developer, I would really love more of these. This is a plugin, bring your own API key. But of course, they don't make money with these extensions. So I see that there's a little bit of a gap between funding the development of these things versus the products and the complete IDEs. But and then again, as a .NET developer, this is really an issue for me, because the .NET debugger only works in the official Visual Studio Code by Microsoft, and not in the forks like Windsurf or Cursors are. So the debugger just says, okay, this is not the official shell I'm in. I'm not working for you. And so, oh, okay. So I have to switch IDEs for debugging. And this is something like,
So as a .NET developer, you normally use Visual Studio?
No, to be fair, I mainly use Rider for debugging, because I'm on a Mac now. And yeah, so it's mainly Rider and a lot of Visual Studio Code directly with GitHub Copilot and Klein, where I do most of my experiments in at the moment. Yeah.
So Dan, how much do you spend a month on like tokens and editors and stuff?
You know, it's funny because it was about an hour ago I resubscribed to ChatGPT Plus for 1 month, just because I wanted to try out some of the image creation stuff. But I saw a post about how you could kind of get the style guide in JSON and kind of create more standardized, if you like, repeatable images. So instantly I'm like, oh, that's another 20. Yeah, I think in total it's only $40 a month now. So it'd be that 20 for ChatGPT, which I'm probably only going to do for 1 month, and then Cursor, which I believe is 20. I did also subscribe to Bolt for 1 month just to try it out. And I said before, I really didn't get on with it. I really didn't. I didn't think it just gave me the worst UI I've ever seen, even with a prompt that I'd found somewhere, somebody saying, use this to get a good UI. And it was really bad. So I'm in that place you are, Chris, where I'm a little bit fatigued by it. I'm not that interested in the minute differences between the different models. I'm trying them to find the bigger differences, like where ChatGPT can do images to a higher level than, or if some of the other ones can't, you can't really do it in Cursor, for example. But yeah, I'm finding at the moment, I'm seeing it a little bit like a consumer, where I'm just saying, I want to know which one is going to give me good results and is going to fit into my natural workflow of I'm already using VS Code. So Cursor was the natural one to jump to, where it's a fork. It feels the same. When you're saying that, Sebastian, I think, well, that's a huge issue. If you're having to go to a completely different IDE just to debug, it fundamentally isn't working for you yet, is it? So I think we're still a way away from it. And in some ways, the fact that everyone's trying to monetize it and they have to monetize it, it's putting walls up. So the progress is not collaborative because the businesses are competing. So it feels like, everybody says competition breeds, good service for the customer or productivity. It's actually, I think, meaning we're probably, the consumer is quite confused. We don't know what the differences are, and we're ending up spending money on loads of them, just hoping we can put them all together and get what we want, which is not ideal. So, yeah.
Well, I'm more annoyed that the normal Copilot or the GitHub Copilot became more expensive because people generate tons of images. Like, basically, that's where the expenditure for the company comes from. But I just want to use the code bit. I never generated an image in the whole thing. I don't care about it. I don't want images to be generated. But still, I have to pay more for the Copilot code helper now. I don't, because I've worked for Microsoft and I have friends in GitHub that give me free access, but it would be more expensive for me as well. And I find that really bizarre. Now, the bit here by Hayden Pickering, the poisoning well, was also interesting as well. When you said earlier, Sebastian, that most of the code that is actually good quality code will never be indexed by those things because they're not indexed. They're not part of the codex model that most of the things were talked on. But there is a whole war going on like bots that go through the web and just index whatever and put it into these systems that we don't have insight what's going into them. So this article is a lot about like what can you do to actually stop AI bots from indexing your content? What can you do to show stuff to your to people but not to bots? And I think the other bit was Wikipedia or Wikimedia Foundation that said like that they're paying so much money for traffic right now because it's basically LLM bots indexing the whole of Wikipedia. So today they actually published a model on Kaggle using the Wikipedia content, saying like, okay, if you really want to index it with LLMs, use that one instead of just hammering our website. I wonder if that's going to make a difference, though, because it seems to me the trying to protect your content from indexing by these bots is getting trickier and trickier because they just don't announce themselves as LLM bots. They just announce themselves as Chromium. Do you have customers that had that problem before? Like, do you have had people who are basically saying like, we want to keep our stuff really safe, but we're seeing in our logs that we're trying that just tries to index us?
Indeed, no. But that's mostly because we don't have a lot of customers that do publish content in a way that would be relevant for anyone to train on.
So one of the last things we can cover today is this article, which I thought was interesting, which was all about local LLM in inference. That basically it takes a kind of a critical stance at like, yes, you can host your own models, but first of all, they're kind of slow compared to the others. And second of all, there's the models available that legally you can use that are free and open source and run on your own machine are not that far ahead or basically are bad quality. Did you see something similar, or what do you normally when you run local models? Which ones you going for?
Yeah, that's what I touched briefly earlier, where I said that we have these models that are capable of certain tasks and not capable of others that are more complex. Currently, I'm still oftentimes locally using Mixtral on my Mac because that's the mixture of experts that gets relatively good results. Also, the Phi models from Microsoft are relatively good at normal language tasks, like translate this for me. What does that mean? Summarize that article. Write me a draft for that, this and that. This works quite good locally, and yeah. But then again, you have to have the hardware for that. And I mean, I'm lucky because my boss Christian sadly isn't here today. Said you're gonna buy that big MacBook with the 128 gigabyte of RAM, where we have the shared memory, where I really can run large open source models, like relatively large open source models, on my machine. And yes, they are slow. Which is not a problem if you're doing sort of batch processing or simple local things. We had a workshop with a customer who were in e-commerce, and they had an issue that they were selling via their own web shops and via Amazon and via eBay. And they had issues with a lot of customers that bought through their web shops, which just took the mail order confirmation and just replied, did not append the original text of the order, and just said, I don't need that anymore. Like, go away, cancel that order. I don't need that anymore. That's a cancellation. And they got like hundreds of these mails over the weekend. And they started shipping stuff on Monday morning. And until the mails over the weekend were all processed, they usually shipped already a lot of stuff. So they had one of their colleagues Sunday evening at 9 or 10 p.m. go and look through the mails, what are cancellations, and manually tick them. And so we worked with them, and then with a local model, it was completely okay to identify if that mail was a request for a cancellation, extract the order number and the email from the customer, and then go through a custom API they built to just set that order on hold until a human then on Monday reviewed that, so that they did not accidentally ship something that was already canceled. And so we helped them with that, and that was completely fine for a local model. So even such things you can do with that. But again, yeah, some reasoning things, like really doing agentic code generation, that's just not there with a local model like you would have it with Anthropic's Claude 3.7 Sonnet, or Gemini 2.5 Pro now, or GPT-4 4.1 currently. Yeah, model fatigue. We talked about that.
Excellent. Well, we're at the hour, so I think this is about good time to wrap up soon anyway. So more importantly, what kind of dog did you get?
We took a 2-year-old Samoyede Chow Chow mix.
Oh,
an emergency dog. The previous owner had huge allergies, and so we took that as a emergency, and then they said, okay, we can keep him. And now I'm thinking about taking him also in our rescue dog squad and train him as a main trailer.
Nice. Yeah, well, the nice little ears, the little Samoyed mix with always the fun bits, yeah.
And the smile. He's so adorable.
I'm such a dog person. Probably if I get attacked by a police dog, I would be like, "What's his name?" Like, like it's just.
We already have a Landseer dog, so really huge one.
Okay, not bad. Yeah, that's the benefit of living in the Black Forest. You got space for it. In Berlin, not so much.
Yeah, no, it would not be possible in the city.
Well, thanks for that, Sebastian. Thanks for you, Dan, to be here around and have the live show. There was a lot of stuff into it today. We didn't go through all the links, but that's okay because we had a lot of good chats, and I think we're going to release the recording of this one as well. I'm going to leave you with a brain teaser and a confusing thing. Have you ever realized that in the expression Pacific Ocean, every sea is pronounced differently?
I like that. I actually love stuff like that. Again, I don't know how your mind works, Chris. It's amazing you come up with that, but yeah, you're right. Can't look at it the same way now.
Cool, yeah.
And with that, thanks very much, Sebastian. One last message for our audience, something you want to throw out there?
Just thank you so much for having me. I hope all the We Are developers out there have a great week. And yeah, look what you can do with GenAI and use it. Try to use it where it really makes sense, and have that that senior look at it when you're using it for coding, and find new creative ways on how to integrate it in your applications for stuff we really did not see yet. It's exciting times.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much. That's it from us. See you next Wednesday.